When I first started learning English, I had no teacher, no classes, and no fancy courses. All I had was a small dictionary, a few radio stations, and a big dream to speak a language that could open the world to me. At that time, many people told me it was impossible. They said, "How can you learn a language without a teacher?" But I believe that effort is the best teacher and curiosity is the best classroom. When I first started learning English, I didn't have a teacher, a classroom, or anyone to guide me. I had no online courses, no apps, and no proper books. What I did have was curiosity, determination, and a deep desire to understand the world beyond my small city. Many people around me spoke my native language, and English felt like a faraway mountain that only the rich or the talented could climb. I wasn't rich, and I didn't think I was talented either, but I believed that if others could learn it, so could I. That belief became my only weapon. In the beginning, I was completely lost. I didn't even know how to start. I remember finding an old English newspaper that I couldn't read at all, but I kept it like a treasure. Every morning, I looked at those words and tried to make sense of them. I didn't understand the meanings, but I liked the way the letters looked, the rhythm of the language, the feeling of something new. Slowly, I began to match words with their meanings using a small dictionary. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I spent hours on one paragraph, but every time I understood a single line, I felt a small victory. That feeling of progress kept me moving. There were times I wanted to give up. I would listen to people speaking English and feel like I was chasing a shadow. The words came too fast, the accent too strong, and I couldn't follow anything. But deep down, I realized that waiting for the perfect conditions would mean waiting forever. I had to start where I was with whatever I had. I remember sitting near tourist spots just to listen to foreigners talk. I didn't understand much, but I tried to catch a few words, repeat them softly, and remember their sound. Sometimes I practiced at night, whispering English words into the dark, trying to train my tongue to move differently. It might sound strange, but those quiet moments became my classroom. I didn't have anyone to correct me, so I became my own teacher. I used a mirror to practice conversations. I would ask myself questions in English and answer them out loud. At first, I felt silly, but after a few weeks, I started enjoying it. The mirror didn't judge me, it reflected my progress. Every mistake, every awkward sentence became a lesson. I realized that learning alone doesn't mean learning without progress. It means learning with courage. When you start where you are, you discover how much potential you already have. People often think success comes from big opportunities, but most success stories begin in small, invisible moments. For me, learning English started with a 10-minute habit. 10 minutes turned into 30, and soon an hour passed without me realizing. I carried a notebook everywhere, writing down new words from street signs, songs, or newspapers. I didn't just memorize them, I used them in my daily thoughts. I began thinking in English, describing my day, my dreams, and my mistakes in this new language. Slowly, my mind adjusted. What used to feel impossible became natural. There were moments of frustration, times when I doubted myself. Some days it felt like I wasn't improving at all. But then I reminded myself that learning isn't a straight road, it's a climb. You may not notice progress every day, but every step takes you higher. Even when I felt stuck, I knew I was still better than the person who hadn't started. That thought gave me power. Sometimes I met people who laughed when I spoke broken English. Instead of getting angry, I smiled. I knew they were laughing at my mistakes, but I also knew something they didn't. I was improving, and they were not. The truth is, when you start where you are and use what you have, the world may not understand you at first. But eventually, it will listen. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once stammered through their first words. I learned that real learning doesn't begin with resources, it begins with resourcefulness. It's not about how much you have, but how much you make out of what you have. I had a dictionary and a dream, and that was enough. Every small effort added up. Every morning I practiced pronunciation. Every night I wrote something new. And every mistake I made brought me closer to understanding. There was no magic moment of success. Just 1,000 small steps taken with belief. When you start where you are, you stop waiting for permission to grow. You don't wait for a teacher, a perfect accent, or the right time. You realize that your journey can begin today, exactly where you stand, with exactly what you have. When I first began learning English, I quickly discovered that the hardest part was not understanding words. It was staying consistent. At the start, I was full of motivation. I made plans, I watched videos, I promised myself I would practice every day. But after a few days, the excitement faded. It became boring, tiring, and repetitive. I started skipping days, telling myself I'd continue tomorrow. And tomorrow turned into a week. That was the moment I realized something powerful talent can give you a good start, but only consistency can take you to the finish line. Every day that I skipped learning, my confidence dropped. Every time I stopped practicing, my progress disappeared a little. I began to understand that the real battle in learning any skill is not against the subject. It's against your own laziness, your doubts, and your excuses. The truth is, most people fail not because they can't learn, but because they stop trying. So, I made a new rule for myself no matter how tired, busy, or unmotivated I felt. I would do something in English every single day. Even if it was just 10 minutes, I wouldn't break the chain. At first, it was difficult. There were days when I came home exhausted, when my mind didn't want to think, when my heart whispered, take a break. But I still opened my notebook, wrote a few lines, or listened to an English song. Those small actions felt useless at the time, but looking back, they built the strongest habit of my life. Slowly, my brain started expecting that routine. Learning English stopped feeling like a task and became part of my day, like brushing my teeth or eating breakfast. I realized that consistency doesn't mean doing a lot. It means doing anything, regularly. You can learn for 10 minutes and still grow if you do it every day. That's the beauty of discipline. It multiplies results quietly. Every small effort you make today becomes invisible preparation for tomorrow's success. There were times when I thought I wasn't improving at all. But months later, I suddenly noticed that I could understand movies better, or speak faster, or remember words without looking them up. Consistency had been working silently in the background, shaping my skills when I wasn't even aware of it. There is a common mistake people make. They want quick results. They start strong, work hard for a few days, and when they don't see progress, they quit. I've learned that language learning doesn't reward speed, it rewards persistence. The progress is slow, but it never stops if you keep going. Just like drops of water can shape a rock, small daily efforts can shape your mind. I told myself, don't compete with others. Just compete with who you were yesterday. Every day that I stayed consistent, I won that competition. Consistency also builds confidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you prove to your mind that you are reliable. When I forced myself to learn even when I didn't want to, I felt a small victory inside. Those victories built momentum. Momentum is powerful. It makes hard things easier. Once you build it, learning doesn't feel like effort anymore. It becomes natural. That's why I believe consistency is stronger than talent. Talent gives you speed, but consistency gives you direction. There were days when I spoke terrible English. I mispronounced words, forgot grammar, and felt embarrassed. But I still practiced. I didn't wait to feel confident before speaking. I spoke until confidence arrived. That is what consistency does. It doesn't ask for perfection, it builds it slowly. Even when I failed, I didn't stop. I told myself, it's okay to fail today. Just don't fail to show up tomorrow. Over time, that attitude changed everything. The most surprising thing about consistency is that it teaches patience. When you do something daily, you stop expecting instant success. You start enjoying the process instead of rushing to the result. I began to love my daily learning sessions. Sometimes I learned a new idiom, sometimes I repeated old lessons, but every day I felt connected to my goal. The progress became my reward. People around me started noticing the difference. They asked how I managed to keep learning without giving up. I told them I wasn't smarter than anyone. I was simply more stubborn. I learned that progress doesn't come from big leaps. It comes from small steps repeated endlessly. There is power in routine. It turns ordinary people into extraordinary learners. I also learned to forgive myself when I made mistakes, but never to excuse myself from showing up. Missing a day didn't mean failure, but giving up on consistency did. I realized that habits don't care about mood. Whether I felt happy or sad, busy or free, tired or energetic, my job was to show up. Some days I learned a lot, some days almost nothing, but I was always present. Over time, I stopped fearing slow progress because I understood that even slow progress is still progress. When you are consistent, every effort counts. Every word you read, every sentence you write, every conversation you attempt becomes a building block for your success. The most beautiful part is that you don't see it happening day by day, but one morning you wake up and realize you've become fluent in something that once felt impossible. When I was learning English, I made more mistakes than I can count. I mispronounced simple words, mixed up grammar rules, and forgot phrases right after learning them. Sometimes I tried to speak and ended up embarrassing myself in front of others. There were moments when I wanted to stop speaking altogether because I was afraid of sounding foolish. But over time, I realized something that changed everything for me. Mistakes were not my enemies. They were my best teachers. Every single time I made an error, I was one step closer to understanding. Every wrong word was a lesson disguised as failure. In the beginning, I used to take every mistake personally. I thought they showed how bad I was at learning, how far I still had to go. But the truth is, mistakes are proof that you are trying. They are the footprints of progress. If you never make mistakes, it means you're not challenging yourself enough. I started noticing that every successful learner I admired once spoke broken English too. They weren't born fluent, they became fluent through trial and error. That realization gave me strength. It taught me to stop hiding from my imperfections and start learning from them. There was a time when I joined an online group to practice English. During my first conversation, I froze. My mind went blank, my accent sounded strange, and I mixed up my tenses. People corrected me kindly, but I still felt embarrassed. That night, instead of quitting, I wrote down every mistake I made. I practiced those corrections until I could say them confidently. The next time I spoke, I made fewer mistakes, but still plenty. Again, I took notes, practiced, improved. This process repeated for months. Gradually, I noticed something beautiful. My mistakes started becoming smaller, and my confidence grew stronger. Mistakes have a secret quality. They make your learning real. Reading books and memorizing rules can give you knowledge, but making mistakes gives you experience. You